Warning, the content you are about to hear on this podcast contains some explicit language in the context of song lyrics. Discretion is advised.
I think that I'm just a rock chick.
I would describe my music and my sound as Avril.
The best damn thing.
Happy New Year and welcome to our first episode of 2025 of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast, a facts and trivia-based podcast about Canadian pop singer Avril Lavigne. I'm your host, Andrew DiFrancesco. So we have quite an episode for our first episode back because I'm sure as a lot of you, if you've been paying attention online especially, you saw that there was a ton of unreleased material over the holidays, like over the course of a few days that just got leaked out of nowhere. And it was a very unprecedented amount of material as well because usually, we've gotten leaks from Avril before in the past, but it's always been like just a few songs here and there. And usually from previous albums that have been out for a long period of time that like these songs are clearly, they've just kind of resurfaced and it's not anything that's going to be, it's like clearly not planned to be used at any point. But this was like a lot of it wasn't just from previous albums, but we also like mainly most of the material that we got came from supposedly the 8th album, which he's currently working on. And so it was just like a very chaotic few days, which I'll get into more a little bit later in the episode, but it was just a very chaotic few days once the new year started. Like I was thinking about what am I going to do for my episode, like my first episode back after the holiday break. And I'm thinking like, Avril's been kind of quiet. I can just do like one of my evergreen ideas, I guess, something kind of like fun and more like analytical maybe to talk about. And then this happened and I was like, I definitely have to dedicate an entire episode to talking about this because it was just so much material, like probably 24 songs, I would say, easily 2 albums at least worth of material from all different records that came out. And it just came out of nowhere and it was very random. It was very sudden. It was like very intense. Like it was just floating around across the internet. All these songs just like one right after another, it seemed like, and it was like very difficult to keep up with. And there was sort of a lot of mixed emotions because it was like, obviously as fans, like we just want to hear the music and we like hearing, the songs that didn't make the cut of the record, or we like kind of hearing, getting a vibe of what she's working on now. But then obviously there's the other side of it that's like, we're feeling kind of bad for Avril because it's like, well, we're not really supposed to be hearing these and she obviously doesn't want them out there. And is she aware that it's happening? And so yeah, it was just like, what a way to start off the new year. I guess we were like, is she going to be kind of more quiet this year apart from the Greatest Hits tour? Like what's going to happen this year? And this is the way that the new year is starting off. So we will definitely get into that more as I get further into the episode. But before I do that, I just wanted to first kind of like give you an update on how my Christmas went because I received one of my presents. My husband got me the Complicated Funko Pop to go with the other Funko Pops that I have of her. And it's just very cool to have because Complicated is my favorite music video from her. And I like just having the Funko Pops that kind of commemorate the Let Go album because it's my favorite album. And what I like about the Complicated Funko Pop is that they included the electric guitar with it. I just think it's so Avril and just really cute. And I love it. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to first run through all the events and news that have happened with Avril since the previous episode as normal, like just my normal summary, and then I will discuss things in further detail. So without further ado, here is the latest news and events that have happened since our previous episode. On December 18th, folk singer Stephen Med posted a YouTube video of archive footage of Avril recording the Quinty Spirit for his album of the same name in 1999. In the description of the video, he wrote, 25 years ago on December 18th, 1999, I released the Quinty CD featuring Avril Lavigne's first studio work. Although her studio debut is likely a very, very faint memory, at the time she said to me and her dad that it was the most important thing she had done. She had found her raison d'etre. This week, I was overcome with emotion as I re-recorded my vocal to the title track and watched the original studio video of Avril and Stephanie Trott learning harmony under the guidance of David Archibald and Duncan Holt. My heartfelt thanks to the talented people who participated on the Quinty Spirit song or video. On December 25th, a new song leaked called Breathe, believed to be from the Head Above Water sessions. However, it's unclear if the leaked version may be a remix of the song that was created later on due to the sampling of protest chants that occurred after the murder of George Floyd in 2020, over a year after Head Above Water's release. A couple other versions of the song also circulated with slightly different lyrics and less electronic elements. According to the song registration site Jima, Breathe is written by Avril, Lauren Christie, Alex Delicata, and Maine Zane, and features electronic pop duo Blackjack. On the same day, music producer J.R. Rodham was interviewed for the YouTube channel Vlad TV. He spoke on his brief relationship with Avril that occurred in 2017 while they worked on the Head Above Water album, explaining they began dating from working together, but ultimately split due to Rodham wishing to date someone out of the limelight. On December 28th, Butch Walker did an interview with Rick Beato on YouTube in which he discussed working with Avril on Under My Skin, saying they worked on 3 songs together at the suggestion of her then bandmate Evan Taubenfeld, as well as the members of Simple Plan, who were fans of Butch's work. He explained he was not allowed to co-write anything with Avril due to her ongoing battle with the Matrix over songwriting credits. Avril then went on to work with several other high-profile songwriters. However, the label ended up liking her work with Butch the best, which prompted Avril to call him 10 months later and resume working together. He also explained Avril got the idea for her look in the complicated music video from an outfit he wore for the photo shoot for his first solo album. Her label then called Butch to tell him about the video, which prompted him to then scrap the photos. On December 31st, Avril posted on Instagram, reflecting back on 2024, what an incredible year. Getting to see you all and travel the world playing shows was magic. Happy New Year's to everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful 2025. Can't wait to see you again this summer with Simple Plan. On January 1st, 2025, the Love Sucks outtake Dancing with a Hurricane leaked, though it appears to be an unfinished demo. Additionally, an alternate version of Bite Me leaked, containing a different bridge with alternate lyrics. A couple days later, another outtake called Dead to Me leaked. Additionally, several new songs from her upcoming 8th album leaked in full over the course of a few days, which previously had only snippets leak. DICK, Boy at the Rock Show, which contains an interpolation of The Rock Show by Blink-182, Signs, and both acoustic and rock versions of Rap Star. Other songs included Pretty Ugly, Miss Me, Classy Bitch, One of Us featuring Gail, Seeing Red featuring Youngblood, Would You Wait, Bad Behavior, Play Yet, Blood, You're the One That I Want, Band Boy, Aftershock, Fishnets, and So Cruel. Additionally, snippets of Liars and Reason featuring All Time Low began circulating, as well as the Best Damn Thing outtake called Low. On January 3rd, a B-side from the Best Damn Thing leaked called Life, also known as Always Move On, as well as an outtake from the Avril Lavigne sessions called Don't Fuck This Up. Within hours of the leaks, all songs were removed from YouTube and other sites after Avril hired a UK-based company called WebShare, which provides intellectual property rights, copyright, and privacy protection services. All of this led to fan speculation that Avril may currently be unsigned and is no longer with DTA Records, as she is no longer listed as an artist on their website. It is currently unknown if any of the leaked songs will appear on her upcoming 8th studio album. On January 6th, she was announced as part of the lineup for the Boston Calling Music Festival on May 24th. On January 8th, she was announced as part of the lineup for another music festival called Bonnaroo on June 14th in Manchester, Tennessee. On January 16th, Avril posted support for Heidi Montag's album Superficial, which had experienced a resurgence in popularity since its initial release in 2010, when fans decided to stream it to support Heidi and her husband Spencer Pratt after they lost their home to the wildfires that occurred in California. Additionally, Spencer posted a TikTok with Avril visiting them. Additionally, Avril attended John Feltman's Christmas party. Complicated reached 1 billion streams on Spotify, Avril's first song to achieve this milestone. She was also named the 47th biggest artist of the 21st century by Billboard magazine, ahead of Rascal Flatts, Christina Aguilera, Olivia Rodrigo, Travis Scott, Coldplay, Jennifer Lopez, and more. Additionally, she was also ranked number 19 on their list of female artists and number 1 for female Canadian artists. And Let Go was also ranked number 225 by Rolling Stone on its list of the 250 greatest albums of the 21st century. So basically this episode is going to be me giving my thoughts on these leaks with the disclaimer that this is purely for discussion purposes only, and I don't personally support the unauthorized purchase, sale, or distribution of Avril's or any artist's work. It is an unfortunate reality of the music industry that people either buy or trade for unreleased material, or it's possible that somebody hacked into DTA's system and stole the work and then just distributed it for profit. We don't really know exactly how all these leaks happened. It was like fan sites getting it and then people just trading for it and posting it. And basically all it takes is one person to get it and then give it to somebody else. And basically it passes through enough hands that it just ends up all over the internet, readily available for listening on places like YouTube and SoundCloud. So I think what actually happened is people had these songs for months and months, and it just took the right person, or perhaps the wrong person, to leak it all over the internet where everyone could hear it. But basically, I think usually what happens is when people get their hands on these songs, they kind of keep it close to the vest and they keep it kind of within a small circle where you basically have to access some kind of Google Drive or something to get the songs. Like, it's very difficult to obtain these songs and very few people have them, because obviously the longer that you hang on to them, the more valuable they are because so few people have them. But then it just takes one person that decides to post it on the internet and it just passes through enough hands that it ends up on places like YouTube and SoundCloud where everyone, like the general public, can access it. And Avril is not the only artist that it happens to either. Like, I guess depending on how many artists you follow, you might wonder, is this common for this to happen to other artists that are kind of at Avril's level. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it is something that happens pretty commonly, especially because now with the internet, it's so much easier to obtain material like this. And they're actually having cases like where it's happened to other artists where the fans who are responsible actually do end up like getting prosecuted for it. Like it actually happened with Ariana Grande where one of her songs got leaked and a fan posted it on Spotify, and because they were making money from the streams, they had to pay a fine, and then they also had to serve like community service time or something like that. And I think another thing happened with somebody else where they had a drive full of like hundreds of unreleased songs from different artists, including Coldplay songs. And I think they were forced to pay a fine. I don't know if it was serve jail time or serve community service time or something like that. But yes, like it's very possible that legal action can be taken against people who do this kind of thing. So you kind of have to decide, I guess, if it's worth it to you to do this kind of thing. Personally, I don't think so. I think it's interesting when it happens to kind of like analyze the music, like, you know, just for the music purposes. And sometimes there's also a theory sometimes that artists themselves will leak the work because they want to see like the fan reaction. Or sometimes there's been instances where songs will leak and it gets a huge reaction, like it goes viral on TikTok or something, and the artist decides to release it officially. But I think that very rarely happens. It doesn't really happen with Avril. I think with Avril, it seems to be that if a song leaks, she just abandons it, which is unfortunate because a lot of her songs that leak, I mean, there are some that leak that, you know, are not very good. Like it's clear why they were left off the album, but then there's other songs that are definitely possibly album worthy, maybe if they had a little bit of tweaking, but, you know, I think, you know, you could see potential in them. And it's unfortunate that like we don't get as many songs on an album as we could, or we don't get deluxe editions, or the songs just end up on the cutting room floor because they leak. And so, yeah, I kind of have like mixed feelings about like when this was all happening. I was kind of feeling like two different ways. I was feeling kind of guilty for listening to it because, I mean, but it's like I'm a fan. I'm, you know, curious to hear what she's working on. It's like an unreleased Avril song, especially if it's from a very old album. I think it's always interesting to hear what ends up on the cutting room floor and what didn't make the cut of the record. And then like, you know, the new stuff, like I kind of have a problem with like hearing stuff that she's currently working on, but obviously out of curiosity, you know, I want to hear the songs, but you know, I think at the same time, it's kind of like, yeah, but we're like not really supposed to be hearing this, and Avril didn't want this out there. And there's a lot of reasons why songs don't get released. It's not just Avril, but the label that maybe didn't want it out there either. And obviously, then you have people that are profiting off of this work that, you know, Avril doesn't see profit from that. And the other people that are involved, like the other writers and the producers and people that are engineering the recording sessions and the label, like all these different people that are involved with the making of Avril's music, they don't see anything from that. And so it's like a very problematic practice that happens. So I kind of wanted to tread this topic delicately because I don't personally support the idea of leaking artist music, whether it's Avril or any other artist in question. Like, I'm on the one hand as a music fan, like I like hearing the songs, but I do have a problem with how these songs are obtained. Like, obviously it's illegal. And I also think that as fans, especially, we kind of need to be careful about this kind of thing. Like, it's one thing if you just stumble across a song on YouTube or something like that. But I think, you know, going to the lengths of actually purchasing this work or trading somebody else for it or hacking into, like, I think that actually happened with that person that had like the large drive of Coldplay songs and stuff. They actually hacked into a drive somewhere to get it. Going to lengths like that, that's obviously illegal to obtain this material. We just should not be doing that. So I just want to make that clear that I don't support this practice. I like hearing the music and kind of just discussing it, like purely for discussion purposes, just like what we're doing here is the songs are out there for public consumption through legal sites like YouTube and SoundCloud. So it's like, yeah, well, we heard them, whether we weren't supposed to hear them or not, we heard them. And so, you know, I kind of can't just like not talk about it, I guess, because I do think there's a lot of good stuff here that I wanted to kind of share my thoughts on. But I just kind of want to address that from the top of the conversation, is that I think different fans have different feelings about the leaks. Like, there's some people who probably didn't even know what happened. There's some people who probably never listened to them, or it was taken down before they had a chance to listen to it. And then there's people that, you know, really enjoy hearing the leaks. But yeah, I mean, it's a complicated thing, no pun intended. And obviously it's unfortunate when it happens that, you know, Avril didn't want this out there and she doesn't really see any benefit from it other than maybe hearing what the fans have to say about it. And she might hopefully reconsider putting some of these songs on the album, or at least making songs that are similar, maybe, hopefully. So like I said, for the purposes of our episode today, I'm just commenting on what I heard and any thoughts I have on the sound or the lyrics, whether or not I'd like to see these songs get released officially if possible, or if I'd like Avril to continue in this direction for the next album, even if she makes songs that are like different, like they're not exactly the same songs, but they're in a similar vein. So I will be going in chronological order based on album. So the first song that I'm going to talk about is Life/Always Move On. This is one of the few leaks that we've ever gotten from The Best Damn Thing, and I'm not sure of the song's true title because the leak names it as Life, but then there's another title, Always Move On, floating around that's unclear if it refers to this song or if it's a different song, but I think people are assuming that it's like under both of these titles. And the song is clearly a raw demo based on how her voice sounds. It sounds very raw and unedited. Like not that she auto-tunes her voice a lot, but you can tell like when you listen to the album that there's been some editing and maybe some slight auto-tuning done to her voice just to kind of polish it up. You can tell that it almost sounds like as if it was recorded live in the studio and they never did anything with it. And also the bridge doesn't have any lyrics. She's kind of just like singing a melody with no words, and so it seems like it's unfinished. And it does remind me a bit of When You're Gone, which would make sense because they're from the same album. I think I've heard a lot of people like this one, but to me, the song is kind of a bit bland. I think the hook in the chorus is okay, but I think it could kind of use some work. It's just like it's very repetitive, and the lyrics, I'm not entirely sure that I really understand what the song is supposed to be about. It just seems like she kind of just took some words that rhyme together, but I'm not entirely sure I understand what the meaning of the song is, and it's kind of repetitive and just kind of like drags on a little bit, and the production's very basic. I think the other ballads that they chose for the final album are stronger songs, like when we think of When You're Gone, Innocence, Keep Holding On, I Will Be. This one just, I think, really pales in comparison because you can just kind of tell it needs some fine-tuning on it. Another interesting fact about this song is that fans claim that they were able to hear a bit of it in the making of the Best Damn Thing documentary when Avril was working with Rob Cavallo on Innocence, which I never really noticed before because a lot of people had talked about that. They were like, I hear another song that she's working on, but it's like it's not any song that we've ever heard. And I was always thinking, oh, it must just be Innocence, because I do know that when she was making Innocence, that there was originally a longer orchestra part that they took it out. So I guess I thought that was what they were referring to. But when I went back and listened to it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of does almost sound like it lines up with this recording of Life that we're hearing. So it is kind of interesting to think that it was slipped into that documentary. And it kind of makes me wonder if like at the time, if they were kind of considering it to be on the album or possibly released as a bonus track, because why would they leave like an unreleased song in the documentary? You know, like you'd kind of think if it wasn't going to be on the album that they would have cut that out. But it's kind of interesting that it did make its way in there a little bit. So my overall thoughts on this one, I don't think we're really missing much by keeping this one in the vault, just because I think it's like kind of similar to the other ballads on the album, but it's like not really as strong in terms of the songwriting. Okay, the next song is Don't Fuck This Up, which is one of the few outtakes that we've gotten from the self-titled album. This title has been known for some time, and fans once believed the song had been given to Emblem 3, who reworked it into a song called Taboo Love. But now, after hearing both songs, I don't think that's the case. Like, they really sound nothing alike. So I'm not sure where that rumor came from. I'm not sure why people thought that, because there's literally nothing similar. Like, the lyrics are not similar. The sound and everything, like, I'm not sure how. I think it's possible that maybe somebody saw Avril's name in the writing credits of the song, and maybe that's where they got it from. I'm not sure. But in any case, after listening to both songs, there's very clearly no relation. So we can clearly debunk that rumor now. According to the song registration site ASCAP, the song was written by Avril, Chad Kroeger, Jacob Kasher, and Johan Carlson. And my thoughts on this one, I think this is one that people seem to really like a lot, but to me, it's just okay. I think the hook is catchy, but it's a very generic pop song. I don't think it was really album worthy, and I don't like the hand clap beat. I don't know, like a lot of people have compared it to You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. I'm not sure I really get that vibe. And in between the two songs, I like You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet more. I don't really have too strong of an opinion on this one. The next track is Breathe, which is a random head above water leak, and this was the song that kind of started this whole thing. And what's funny is I actually thought it was AI at first because like it just came in front of nowhere, and I think it was like on Christmas Day or something of all days for this to leak, and I was like, somebody's trying to like get attention, or someone is trying to play a prank on us or something, because like why would an old Head Above Water song leak on Christmas Day? And it was just really weird. Like the thing that kind of set me off about it is not only the production, like the electronic breakdown part of it sounded kind of amateurish, but also the like the chants that the I Can't Breathe chants, it's very clearly a reference to the protest that happened after the murder of George Floyd in 2020. And I'm like, this makes no sense in the context of this song. But also, obviously, the George Floyd protest happened in 2020, which was a whole year after the release of the Head Above Water album. So how could you have a production element from something that happened after the release of the album that this is supposed to be from? So I was very convinced that this was AI or like some really bad fan-created remix or something. But then it was confirmed to be real. So then we were kind of all wondering, well, you know, is this a remix that was created later? Because maybe initially the verse and chorus, like lyrics and melody, was actually a real song, but then all that electronic stuff and the George Floyd chanting was something that came later. Like they decided like they didn't want the song, they gave it to a remix artist, and maybe this is what they made. But then Avril didn't give her approval for it to come out because then it kind of took on this political tone that she wasn't a fan of, and that's why it was never released. Or she just didn't like it for some reason, and it never got released. So it's kind of interesting to think what this would have been released for if it had been released, because obviously the album was already out at the time, unless they were thinking about doing either a deluxe version a year later, or if they were just going to release it as like a standalone single, or maybe for another artist, like who knows. I think the verses and the chorus sound really promising. It's a really nice melody, and I think it would have fit nicely with the Head Above Water theme, like because she's talking about like I can't breathe, which, you know, she says that in the Head Above Water song. So I think it would have worked really nicely on the album. But then the George Floyd chanting, I think it changes the meaning of the song, because, you know, I think that Avril is talking about like I can't breathe, like help me breathe. She's talking about it in relation to her Lyme disease, which is like that was the main theme of the Head Above Water album. But now with this I can't breathe political chanting, that's a completely different thing. Like it's like they're saying the same thing, but they mean two different things. So I'm not really sure why somebody thought it was a good idea to add this chanting into the song. And people have also pointed out that it's not the place for it. Like the song has nothing to do, like it's not a political song. And to like kind of add this kind of political based thing, like protesting into an Avril Lavigne song, it's just like, it's not a fit. It doesn't really make sense. And, you know, people are like, this is really not the place to be doing that. Like it just like doesn't fit. It kind of ruins the flow of the song, in my opinion. It kind of like slows it down. And also, like I said, it changes the meaning of the song. And I also think the electronic breakdown where like her voice gets all distorted and stuff, I frankly think it sounds really badly done. Like, I mean, I'm not opposed to experimenting with that kind of thing. And she's done little elements like that before in her songs, like in, I don't know, Hello Kitty as an example. But I think the way that this song in particular was produced, it kind of like hurts my ears. And I don't know, it doesn't sound good. And I think it honestly ruins the song. So if they left off the chanting and the electronic breakdown part, I think this would have been a nice addition to Head Above Water. There are a couple alternate versions of this song that were floating around as well, but I don't think there was really too much of a difference that I could tell from when I heard them. Is that I think it was just like maybe the lyrics have been changed and there was a little less electronic part of it, but it was still very EDM influenced. So maybe if there was like an acoustic version or something of this song, I think that would work really nicely. Okay, so now getting into the Love Sucks leaks, we have Dancing with a Hurricane, which is another title that we've known of for a long time from Love Sucks due to the chalkboard titles, like the infamous chalkboard photo that we had seen John Feldman post that had all these titles on it. And Dancing with a Hurricane was one that, like, for the longest time, we've been wanting to hear this one. And I'm glad that we finally did get to hear it, but unfortunately, the song kind of ended up being a bit disappointing and underwhelming for me because I was highly anticipating this one because it's like one of those ones that we've known of for so long. And the title sounded really interesting and like different than what she normally does. But I expected it to sound more explosive like the title implies. And it was just a little too understated and quiet for me. And like her voice sounds nice, but I think the song is just kind of lacking something. And it also seems kind of unfinished because the verses just repeat the same lyrics. So it feels very demo-ish to me. Like I think with some reworking, it can maybe have potential. But I've seen a lot of people respond really well to this one, but I think it just didn't really quite do it for me because it just feels a little bit like kind of demo-ish, I guess, and unfinished and just not like what I expected it to sound like, I guess. And I also think that Avalanche seems like a similar idea, like in terms of the theme and stuff. Hurricane, avalanche, and she's talking about like feeling like anxiety and overwhelmed and stuff. So it seems like a very similar idea. And I think they just went with the stronger of the two songs, which I think in this case, Avalanche was the right way to go over Dancing with a Hurricane. Next, we have what I guess fans are calling the cannibal version of Bite Me. It's an alternate version of Bite Me that's been known for some time, and it was known that there was initially another bridge with different lyrics. So again, like there's nothing else really different about the song. Like the other lyrics are basically the same, and the production and her vocals and everything is all the same. It's just the bridge that's different. And so like, again, I'm glad that we did get to hear this one. I'm not quite as bothered about this one leaking because it's just a different version of a song that was officially released. So I don't think it's a big deal that this one leaked. But obviously we were not supposed to hear it, and the lyrics were changed for a reason, which I'll get into. But the different lyrics are: try to catch me, sink your teeth in, but you know it's not hunting season. Think you're a man, well, I'm an animal. I'll eat your heart like a fucking cannibal. And then each chorus ends with, so you can fucking bite me, instead of, so baby, you can bite me. I like the alternate lyrics more. I think they're more descriptive and creative and clever than what they ended up with. Because the lyrics that they ended up with are, I know you taste me on the tip of your tongue, I fell fast when I know I should have run, And it's just it just keeps repeating. And to me, it's just like, I mean, I get why they had to come up with different lyrics, which I'll explain in a second. Like, I get why they had to come up with different lyrics. I don't know, like, I just think these lyrics, the alternate lyrics, are so much more descriptive and really fit with that Bite Me theme more. And especially when you look at the acoustic music video now, the video for the acoustic version where she like takes the teeth out of him and wears it like a necklace and stuff, I think it kind of just makes a lot more sense and lines up more with the theme. So yeah, I think what they ended up coming up with was just kind of a little bit underwhelming by comparison, but I guess they had to abandon it because there was an actual cannibalism case going on at the time and they didn't want to draw controversy, so they changed it. So I get it, but ideally I would have liked to see this version be the final version of the song. And then the last Love Sucks track, or what I think is a Love Sucks track that we got, is called Dead to Me. I like this song and it's catchy, but it sounds very similar to the other Love Sucks songs. It even has like a similar theme, and the trap beats that are in the pre-chorus are very similar. The production is like exactly the same as everything else on Love Sucks. So I think it has to be from Love Sucks, because I'm not entirely sure if it's from Love Sucks or if it's from the 8th album, but it sounds like Love Sucks to me because the production it's got John Feldman written all over it basically. And what kind of occurred to me when I listened to the song is that it seems to me like Avril's process is to make a lot of songs that sound a bit similar in production, theme, lyrics, and melody, and just pick the best ones, which is why so many of the leaks sound similar, or they sound like songs that are on the actual album. And I think I made this realization when I reviewed the Love Sucks album as well. And like when we got a bunch of leaks from that, I was like, a lot of these sound kind of similar. Like she's either lifting some of the same lyrics or production elements, or the themes are all kind of similar. So I feel like sometimes what she might do, I just think it's a really interesting part of her songwriting process, or the album making process, is to be like, let's make a bunch of songs that are all kind of similar and we'll just pick the best ones. Like, so that way it's not too repetitive. Like, for example, with the Dancing with a Hurricane versus Avalanche situation, where it's like they're kind of about similar topics, but obviously the production's way different. But she was basically writing about the same topic, and just like which one, I mean, Dancing with a Hurricane wouldn't have fit on the Love Sucks album because it's not very pop punk, whereas like Avalanche has that more heavy rock feel. So, you know, it could have just been a thing like that where it's like, well, I like Dancing with a Hurricane, and I like the emotion that it's conveying. Like both songs are conveying the same emotions, but sonically Avalanche fits more. And so that's kind of what I think happened with Dead to Me, is that I think it just sounds very similar to other songs on the album, and this one maybe just for whatever reason wasn't quite up to snuff the way that the others were. So now the rest of the songs are going to be the ones that we got from the 8th album, or they're believed to be from the 8th album. So the first song is called Rap Star, which we've known of for a while because some time ago a snippet of the acoustic version leaked. Why there's an acoustic version and a full band version, I'm not sure of. That happened with a few of these songs where there's like two different versions of it for some reason. Maybe it's just like a production thing. They wanted to see if it would work as an acoustic version, or maybe if it was prospected to be an album track, they wanted to have an acoustic version for a deluxe edition of the album. Like, who knows? But for whatever reason, there's an acoustic version, and that was the one that we got a snippet of first. And Travis Barker had also made a reference to it on Avril's Instagram as far back as 2023. So I think it appears to have been written around the time that she was dating Tyga, which would date back to late spring or summer of 2023. I think that just makes sense. And I think it's just undeniably about him because, like, who else would it be about? Like, even though she was involved with Mod Sun and MGK, who are both like former rappers, but I don't think it's about them. I just cannot see it being about like Mod Sun or even MGK. I think it would make sense if he was talking about it, if Travis Barker had made reference to it in 2023, and that's when the whole Tyga thing happened. I feel like it just has to be about him and from that time. So because of that, it's probably unlikely to be released now on the album due to just how long ago it's from and the fact that she's not dating him anymore. And it would probably possibly bring up some controversy as well, because that relationship was not really well received by a lot of people. So I feel like this one's probably best left in the vault. But it's too bad because I actually really like the song. The acoustic version is okay, but I really like the full band version. It works surprisingly well. When I first heard the snippet, I didn't really think much of it. And I'm like, I don't care if we ever really hear this one. But then once I heard the full version with the full band, because I think I thought it was going to be a song of her actually rapping. And I'm like, I don't really need to hear that. But it works surprisingly well. It's a pop rock song, but it's about a rapper. So I think, it's kind of interesting. It's just too bad that the lyrics are about Tyga because that relationship was not good. But it's a good song. And I like that even though it's a standard love song from her, the lyrics explore the idea of the relationship potentially not working out and that she's trying to stop herself from falling in love like too hard, which I think is a little different than what she normally writes about. Like she never really talks much about like the consequences of falling in love with this person. She kind of just says like, I really like you and I hope that it works out kind of thing. Or she writes about when it doesn't work out, but she is kind of talking about like how they're both big superstars but they come from different worlds. Like it's kind of like a star-crossed lovers thing, I guess. And she's kind of sharing she's saying that she's being very vulnerable, saying I love you and I want this to work out, but I'm kind of anticipating that it won't because I think we just come from two different worlds that are too different, which is kind of interesting because she never really writes about that. And I like the lyric "Gaga gone bad, so I kissed him" because it's sort of a play on words. Like she's saying that she's gaga over him, which means like she's head over heels for him. But it's also like she's just stuttering over the word gone. So I thought that was a really clever kind of wordplay. The next song is Playette, which is definitely unfinished because only the chorus exists with just the instrumental for the verses. So it's possible that a rapper is supposed to go in those parts. Maybe it was supposed to be a collaboration with Tyga. Who knows? And even though it's a more hip hop and rap influenced song, this one is surprisingly promising in my opinion and has a really catchy hook. Like I'm not sure that I really thought much about how I thought Avril could pull off rap and hip hop songs. Like I would have ordinarily been like, no way, but she is surprisingly good at it. Like, I mean, she's a really good, strong vocalist and she is no stranger to dabbling in different genres. And so I think it's more about the genre is almost kind of irrelevant. It's more about, can you write a good song? Like a good song is a good song no matter the genre. And she's a good singer. So like, can she just sing it well? And like this song, I don't know how it would sound if there was a rapper on the verses, but I do think they came up with a really good hook for the chorus and she sounds really good and strong singing it. So I would have liked to hear this one be finished, but unfortunately I think this one's going to be left in the vault as well because I think she's kind of abandoned that rap and hip hop sound. And then the last song that kind of came out of that rap and hip hop phase that she was in is called Aftershock, which is another one that's unfinished because she's just mumbling the verses so she can lay the melody down. Like you kind of can hear how she wants the lines to end for the rhyming scheme and just a general idea of how the melody should go, but she doesn't have the lyrics filled out yet. But the hook is complete. And something that I thought of when I heard it is that the instrumental, it's like it sounded very familiar to me. And I realized that the instrumental reminds me of Gangsta's Paradise because it's got a very similar beat and tempo. And if it had strings, it would sound pretty identical. The production style suggests like a rap rock style or alternative rap, which is really interesting. She's never really done anything like that. I surprisingly really like this one and it sounds promising if it were finished. I like the idea of her comparing falling in love to being electrocuted. She says, and every time we meet, it's like a million little bolts of electricity. And I also like the woo part that happens after the chorus. It's just a really like different kind of song for her that's actually really cool sounding. And so what I kind of thought when I heard all these more like rap and hip hop leaning songs from this batch of songs is that I could envision if the 8th album had come in 2023 during her Tyga phase, she could have done an album of songs like Rap Star, Close, Playette, and Aftershock. And this was when she was wearing those long coats with the long stiletto nails and the thigh-high boots, and she had the short hair. And It would have obviously been a very different and kind of shocking change for her, but that's the vibe that I get from these songs, and the image from that time is I feel like if the eighth album had been ready in that phase, I mean, yeah, it would have been quite divisive, I think, amongst her fans, but it certainly would have been different. And I think she could have probably pulled it off. It would have been almost more like a character that she was playing, not like this is actually the new sound and image from Avril Lavigne. This is like the new Avril Lavigne. I think it would have been to her like what Reputation was for Taylor Swift, where it was like a character that she was playing and just like sort of like a dark version of Avril maybe, and something very different. And like even Taylor with the Reputation album, there were hip hop elements on that album. So maybe that's just what made me think of it. So like these songs and that image kind of makes me think that's what the eighth album potentially could have been. I guess maybe some fans are probably glad that it wasn't, but I think it certainly would have been interesting to see if that was how it ended up unfolding. The next song is Stranger, which is not one that's leaked recently, but I realized that I never commented on it when it did leak. Initially, I kind of just like blew past it, just mentioned that it had leaked, but I didn't give my thoughts on it. So for now, we only have the acoustic version, but there is supposedly a full band version in circulation. And I really like this one. It tells a very cute story, like a meet cute, I guess you could call it. It's a little bit different than her usual and tells more of a story. And the thought that I had was kind of like if a Hallmark movie was a song, this would basically be it. So I really like this one, but sadly, I don't think it'll be on the album just because it leaked. I think it works okay as an acoustic version, but I'd be really interested in hearing the full band version and seeing if I like that one better. The next one is Boy at the Rock Show, and we got a snippet of this one some time ago. The chorus uses the same melody and similar lyrics to The Rock Show by Blink-182, but from the girls' perspective, which is kind of interesting. But the thing that differs from the original Blink song is that the production is a lot more pop, less pop punk, and a lot more like leaning on the pop side. And the other thing that's weird about it is that it seems like it just ends suddenly. Like she's doing this kind of, I don't know if it's a bridge or just like a breakdown kind of at the end of the song. And I feel like it could just use another chorus before it ends. But that kind of seems to be a common thing that she does with her songs now, especially ones that John Feldman has produced, because he likes to keep songs roughly about 2.5 minutes. So I guess they probably just wanted to keep it short, but I feel like it could have used another chorus at the end. So what's interesting about this song is that it tells the story of The Rock Show by Blink-182, but from the girls' perspective, which is an interesting idea, but I wish the song wasn't so pop because, like, that's just not how the original song is. And I feel like her voice sounds a little bit too, like, young on it. Like, the way that they produced her voice, it makes her sound, like, way too childish, kind of. And I think the lyrics are too juvenile, which I guess lines up with the way that the original song was, but I'm just kind of tired of hearing these kinds of lyrics. And I feel like we could just do without this one. I don't think it really adds anything of value unless you were to try making a TikTok or something with it to go viral. Like, that's kind of what it feels like, is that this is the type of thing that you would release to have like a viral moment, not really to put on an album. The next song is Band Boy, and this one is a bit weird because when I first heard it, I kind of had the thought that I wonder if it was supposed to be for the Skater Boy movie that Avril is still working on, because the lyrics sound a lot like the story of Skater Boy, but from Avril's perspective, because in the original song, it's Avril who ends up with the Skater Boy in the end. Like we hear the story of this ballerina girl and the Skater Boy, and then in the end, Avril is actually the one who gets to be with him. And so I kind of wonder if that's what the point of the song is that it's supposed to be like an updated song or a sequel song that's, because like the song is called Band Boy, like Band Boy, Skater Boy, and boy is spelled the same way. You know, like, it kind of makes me wonder, like, I feel like that's not a coincidence. I feel like it has to be a very pointed reference back to Skater Boy and that it's potentially for the Skater Boy movie. I like the melody and production. I think it's very reminiscent of 2000s era pop punk and alt rock with those crunchy guitars in the chorus. Like, the thought that came to mind for me, I could be off the mark on this one because I don't listen to a lot of Sum 41, but it reminded me of Sum 41. It has like that kind of sound to it. And it also made me think of the song Year 3000, which was originally by a band called Busted, but the Jonas Brothers version is the one that I'm more familiar with. And I think it sounds a lot more akin to that version anyway. Like, the Jonas Brothers did that sort of Disney pop rock, and this basically sounds exactly like that. So it kind of reminds me of that song Year 3000. However, I will say I think the lyrics are too juvenile, which, I mean, if it's meant to be a sequel song to Skater Boy, then I guess that's fine because it's just kind of hearkening back to a song she wrote as a teenager. So it makes sense that the lyrics are going to sound like a teenager. But if it's supposed to be a song that she's writing now as a 40-year-old woman, like it, she sounds like a teenager on it. I also think like I'm normally not the type of person who overthinks these kinds of things. But when I heard the lyrics, it kind of did occur to me that the lyrics seem a little bit even problematic depending on the age of the characters involved. Like I think we're not quite sure how old the female character, like the Avril character, is supposed to be, or if it's even Avril herself or if it's just a character. But we're not really sure of the age of the characters involved. I'm going to assume that she's supposed to be a teenager, though, because she talks about like letting him meet her mom afterwards. I get that it's supposed to be just a fun song and that we're not supposed to take it too seriously, but I kind of can't help but just think when I hear the lyrics that it's perpetuating like groupie culture and the idea of male celebrities taking advantage of their young female fans, which unfortunately has happened. Like that's been going on for literal decades, like since the advent of rock and roll music. It's, been an unfortunate thing that's happened. And so I feel like when you read through the lyrics, it kind of does give off that vibe. Like, I don't think Avril meant to do that. I think she's just writing a song that she thinks is fun and telling a story. But like one of the lyrics that kind of made me think that is, I let him meet my mom. She said he's no good for me. And I told her she was wrong. It's like, yeah, maybe mom was onto something. Like, we don't know the age. Like I said, we don't know the age of, like, it's kind of presumed that Avril is a teenager. And then the band boy, like, we're not sure of his age. Like, it's presumed that they're probably close in age. But yeah, it's just like, it's one of those things that it takes me out of the song a little bit because I kind of just can't get past the lyrics. That makes me feel a little bit icky, honestly. They're very Wattpad kind of lyrics, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Like, I think there was a thing, like, I never did it personally, but I just know of it from the internet, is that like people, like teenage girls, used to write stories, like fictional stories on places like Wattpad that were exactly like what this song is talking about, where it's like, I'm going to a concert and he's going to sing just for me and he's going to make me his girlfriend. Like, that was all I could think of when I first heard this song, is just like the lyrics. Like, it's very catchy melody, like fun story and like great storytelling, and would be really fun in like the context of the Skater Boy movie. But like for an actual album, it sounds like a teenage girl writing a Wattpad story. That's basically all I could think of. And I'm just like, that is kind of the thing that takes me out of the song, that I just can't get past that part of it. And I also find the electric guitar riff that plays when she's doing like the when she's doing that thing, and there's like the electric guitar that plays, it's very annoying. Like, that is the only part of it that I just find like really obnoxious. Like, maybe it's supposed to be, I don't know. But yeah, this song is just, it's one of those things where it's catchy, but on the other hand, it's also just downright obnoxious and annoying and just way too teenagery. Like I said, I think it would fit in the context of the Skater Boy movie, but outside of that, I don't want to hear this one. The next track is totally different in terms of the vibe. It's called Signs, which a snippet of that leaked a while ago, and I remember not thinking much of it and thinking it was nothing special really. But this is one of the most well-received ones by the fans, I think, just because it's something more mature and mid-tempo, which we haven't had a lot of since the Love Sucks era. But for me, I think it's just a little bit too bland. Like, my opinion hasn't really changed since hearing the snippet. I think it's just a little too bland and underdeveloped. The production sounds a little bit dated. And I think it's because it reminds me of the ballads that she would write for the Best Damn Thing album. Like, it just reminded me of that. I think with just like the production and the tempo. And something that also occurred to me is the end of the bridge with the belted high notes where she says, yeah, yeah. It sounds exactly like the bridge in When You're Gone. Like, the way that she's singing it is exactly like in When You're Gone, which I thought was kind of interesting. So maybe that's why it made me think of the Best Damn Thing era ballads. I think the song shows promise, but I think it needs some work with the lyrics and the production. So like, I'm not completely opposed to her if I don't think she'll ever release this one officially, but I think if she was going to, I wouldn't be completely opposed to having it on the album, because it is a step in the right direction in terms of having something with more depth and more substance and moving away from that Love Sucks, pop punk, aggressive, like super fast, bratty kind of sound. It's a step in the right direction, but I think it just really needs some retooling. The next song is Bad Behavior, which is sort of like in line with her typical fun songs that we've gotten from her, where she's like, I'm going to go out and get into trouble and stuff. Like, not doing anything super bad, but kind of a little bit bad. But what I like about it is that it kind of has to me, it has like a classic 70s rock feel. I don't know why. Maybe I'm completely off the mark on that, but that's just what I thought of instantly. I'm like, it's something different, definitely. Like, there's definitely a different feel in this one, because like she's done pop rock, pop punk, alternative rock. Like, she's done so many different subgenres in the rock category, but this one has a different feel, definitely. Like, it's not punk feeling, but it's not like 2000s pop rock feeling. There's a different feel to this one, and all I could think of was like 70s rock or like classic rock. And I really like the hook of this one when she's like, I'm on some bad behavior. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really well done. I like that one. Like, I would be up for like if she has to have these kinds of fun, I'm getting into trouble kinds of songs on her album, like 1 or 2 per album, I would be okay with this kind of song because like that 70s rock feel kind of saves it for me. And I think the hook is really good. It's just something different at least. So I think this is probably as like fun and bratty maybe as I'd want her to go. The next one is Classy Bitch, which is another fan favorite from the leaks. And I like the melody in the verses, but I don't like the lyrics or the rapping part. I think like we've just kind of had enough of these kinds of songs from her. I don't know. I think this is like one of my least favorites from the leaks. And to go along with that, another one that's kind of in a similar vein is DICK. So we heard a snippet of this one before, and I honestly didn't think much of it then. I was like, I could live with never hearing this one in full, honestly. The official title seems to be DICK and not Dick, like we previously thought, which I can live with a little bit more than her actually having a song called Dick. So if it's called DICK, that's a little bit better for me. I think the verse melody is catchy, but I don't really like the chorus cheerleading chant, like with the spelling and stuff that she's doing. I just think it isn't really anything different or new, and I don't particularly like the lyrics. I think the bridge, just for me, like I know that she's just trying to be funny, and that's what people have said, like she's just trying to be funny, and it's not that serious and stuff. But for me, I just think the lyrics in the bridge, it's a little too graphic and vulgar, I think, for her, like than we've ever heard her go. And the lyric, I don't do mean, I'm Queen Levine, was a little bit too on the nose, I think. Like, I get it's supposed to be funny, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know. When I first heard this, I'm like, these lyrics are just making me cringe. And I don't think we really need more songs like this. So I think this is my overall least favorite from the leaks. I know it's like some people actually really like it, which I'm surprised about because I thought people were over the kind of bratty cheerleading chant stuff from her. And this one is like not very mature. It's like, you were a dick, you treated me like shit, whatever. It's very Love Sucks-ish, and I just kind of thought we were maybe like past that now. So it's like I don't really need to hear more songs like this, honestly. And then the next song is a song called Fishnets, which is the only one that I didn't get to hear because it was taken down before I got to hear it. So I can't really offer much commentary on it, but I did see the lyrics that were posted on Genius, so I got kind of a vibe from that. Sounds like it's very similar to a lot of the other songs. And based on what other people have said that have heard it, they say that it sounds pretty similar to a lot of the other songs that we've gotten. So doesn't sound like I really missed much, I guess. I've heard conflicting info that it's either from the 8th album, but then I also heard that it could be from the self-titled. I'm not really sure where I heard that from, but that's what I thought I heard. But I think it is confirmed to be from the 8th album. So that's just kind of a little note there in case I'm getting it wrong. The next song is called So Cruel, and I'm not sure if this is from Love Sucks or from the 8th album because it sounds very similar to Love Sucks, but I guess it is supposed to be from the 8th album. So again, it's kind of carrying over that same sound from Love Sucks. So for me, it's just okay. It's very similar to Love Sucks and just has more of the same type of lyrics, melody, production. Like, again, I could basically live without this one. I don't think this one really needs to be released officially. The next song I want to talk about is one of my favorites, but it's unfinished, which is called Blood, which is interesting because we don't hear her say the word blood anywhere in the song. So I guess we have to trust that this is the real name of it. It's unfinished, contains more of her mumbling the verses, but has a completed hook. I actually really love this one. I like that the chorus contains a blend of piano with the guitars. It gives it this very 2000s alt rock sound. Like maybe again I'm off the mark on that, but that's what it made me think of, because I think a lot of alternative rock songs in the 2000s would do that, where they would have piano with the guitars, and the guitar riff at the end of the chorus is very, to me, like I was thinking of U2, and my husband's a big U2 fan, so I did ask him if he thought, does that sound accurate, and he said yeah, it sounds like the song Walk On by U2. So that's what I thought of. I can imagine it playing in a 2000s rom-com. Like that's what it made me think of. And I like that the lyrics aren't bratty and it seems more reflective and mature, like kind of reflecting on a breakup. Like, don't pretend like this was anything more than it was. It was what it was, and we're moving on from it. So I really like that kind of different spin on a breakup song rather than a song like DICK or So Cruel. I prefer, I think, songs more like this. So it's too bad that it was unfinished because I would have really liked to hear this one to be finished. Another song that I really liked is called Pretty Ugly, And this is very classic Avril, very classic pop rock sound from her. But I really like the lyrics and the theme about letting someone into the good and the bad of a relationship, because I don't think we really get that from her too much. So I like that she touched on that, where it's like, you know, relationships aren't going to be perfect and ideal and like this, you know, highly romanticized thing all the time. They're not like a Hallmark movie. Like there are going to be, you know, ups and downs. And she doesn't just want him to see the good and the ups of the relationship, but she does want him to be there for the ugly and for the bad. The only thing about this song is that it's a bit short. It's barely over 2 minutes and there's no bridge. So I don't know if it was like written intentionally like that or it's another one that's unfinished, but I do like this one a lot. And I'm sad that it will probably never be put on an album because I think it's a really strong song. Another one that I loved a lot was One of Us featuring Gail. And this one's very gothic influenced. It kind of reminded me of her songs like I Fell in Love with the Devil. And this is another one that for some reason lacks a bridge. So I don't know if they just didn't want to include one or it's unfinished. Something about this song is that I can picture a really epic cinematic music video for this, where like if Avril and Gail met up in a graveyard to either like bury the bodies of their exes or they're like gonna fight some vampires or something like that. Like I can just picture, like the production of this really reminded me of when Tommy Prophet did that version of What Child Is This with her. It's like that kind of gothic, very epic cinematic kind of sound. I know that Tommy Prophet did work with her, so I don't know if this is one of the songs that they did together or if it's a John, because it just does not sound like a John Feldman thing to me, so I'm kind of wondering if Tommy Prophet had a hand in this one. That's kind of what I'm thinking is like that What Child Is This sound, and if she did a video kind of similar to I Fell in Love with the Devil or something, and it's just like this really, almost like a mini movie kind of, like I could just picture a really epic music video, like a very Halloween kind of music video or like horror movie music video for this one. I think that would be really cool. And I think if she were to go in a direction like that, where she's doing kind of more gothic influenced music or videos or image, I think that would work for her more. Like if she's looking to kind of change things up a little bit, it wouldn't be as far of a jump as if she went into like that rap and hip hop sound and image that she was doing before. I think she could pull it off like really convincingly. And I think people would take notice because she's kind of been doing the same pop rock nostalgia kind of thing for a long time. And people like that. Like the general public likes that from her. But I think if she made a switch into something slightly different that wasn't too far of a reach from what she's doing, but it would just be something different and kind of fresh and new, I think people would take notice. And I think it might give her a resurgence in popularity where they would feel like, I didn't know that she had this side to her. And like, I think she would do like a really convincing job if she were to release a song like this and then do some really epic kind of mini movie music video to go with it. I think people would really enjoy that. Another song that I loved a lot, like this is one of my top favorites, is Seeing Red featuring Youngblood. And I don't know if this was made at the same time as Love Sucks or if it was made for the 8th album, because the theme is a bit similar to I'm a Mess, which is interesting. So it kind of makes me wonder if they were written at the same time, but then we do know that they worked together for the 8th album as well. So it's kind of unclear, but I really like this one. I'm not really a super fan of Youngblood's voice on it, and I would prefer if it was only Avril singing, but I do love the melody and the production of this. It has slight country rock vibes in the chorus to me, and it's very reminiscent of 2000s era pop rock. It's kind of upbeat and bubbly, but yet the lyrics are sad, which I think is an interesting juxtaposition there. And I love the way that the chorus resolves at the end. So like, was like, seems so far away. Like, just, I don't know, the way that they chose to kind of resolve that melody, I think was really kind of like, it just grabbed my attention. And the lyrics remind me of Red by Taylor Swift, because she's mentioning like red, blue, gray. And it also reminds me of Yesterday by the Beatles, because she's like, yesterday seems so far away. That's pretty similar to Yesterday by the Beatles. So this is a personal favorite of mine, and I would love to see it get released officially if possible. Okay, so now we're wrapping up with the last few songs here, including Miss Me, which it is my favorite, not just my favorite from all of these leaks, but it is possibly one of my all-time favorite songs that Avril has ever done, ever. I could just probably go on and on and on about how much I love this song, because like this was one of the early ones that we got before we got a whole bunch more. This was one of the very early ones that came out, and we kind of had a little bit more time to like digest properly. And it was one of the ones that grabbed me initially when I heard it. I was so impressed that she came up with something like this. I really love the production, the instrumentation, her vocals, the emotion in her voice, and I especially love the bridge. Like, I think you can just really feel and hear the pain and the sadness in her voice, the way that her voice comes across, which a lot of times you don't really get to see quite that level of like performance from her. It's giving such 2000s pop rock vibes, like the song could play in a rom-com after a breakup scene. That's what I thought of. And I think it's because it reminds me of Gotta Go My Own Way from High School Musical 2. It's very similar in the beat, the tempo, the key, the subject matter. Like someone could easily make a mashup of those two songs. So I think that's like part of why I like it so much, is that it kind of reminds me of that. I do find it a bit odd though how the second verse leads right into the bridge instead of the chorus, like why there was not another chorus and it instead goes right to the bridge. I thought that was a little bit kind of odd in the structure. Another thing that I like about it is that I like that it's a breakup song, but it's not like her usual lyrics. Like I think DICK and the stuff on Love Sucks, like that's what we're used to hearing from her with the breakups. But this one is more like, it's vengeful, but it's not like in that same way. It's like, you treated me terribly and you're going to regret it kind of thing. But she's more like sad. Like she's a combination of being mad and sad, which I think we don't really get a lot. Like it's more like we usually just get like mad or I'm moving on without you kind of thing. Not like I'm actually sad about this though. And I kind of just get the vibe that she was like mad the day that she wrote this. And it really comes across, I think, in the recording. And I had the thought that I think this song must be written for Modson after their breakup, because it just would seem to make sense. Like it would just seem to line up with like the timing. But probably this is just a coincidence, but the lyric, "Don't say that you need me just to cry on my shoulder," reminds me of how he has a song called Shoulder, which contains the lyric, "Just let my shoulder be what your tears cry on." So again, it's probably just a coincidence, but I did think that was a really interesting potential Easter egg, that it's just like a very subtle reference. It's not very obvious. Like that's not one of his most well-known songs, but you know, it's a little subtle reference to a song of his that is, you know, the song is probably most definitely about him. And I don't know, I just do with that what you will, I guess. It's just something that occurred to me that I thought was really interesting. I would love for this one to be released officially if possible, but I'm going to resign myself to the fact that it probably won't be. But I would love for Avril and her team to please consider it, because I really think it's one of the strongest songs out of all these leaks. It's very evocative of her early kind of like Let Go era music, but it doesn't sound dated to me. It sounds very like fresh and very nostalgic, but also from this time, if that makes sense. And just the emotion, it's so powerful. And her voice is so just emotive on it. I love this one so much. Okay, one of the last ones is called You're the One That I Want, which is another one that's an uncompleted demo, but it sounds promising. Like, it basically doesn't have verses, but it does have a hook, and I think the hook is very promising. It sounds like some of the leaks that we got from Head Above Water. Like, it kind of reminds me of Lights Out or something like that. And the instrumental where the verses should go reminds me of Goodbye from Goodbye Lullaby, for what that's worth. So I think with some reworking, I think this one could have potential. And then the last one, at last, we have reached the final song out of this whole big batch of songs, is Would You Wait? And this is another fan favorite that has more of a slight country feel. The lyrics kind of remind me of Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by Carole King, because she says, if I stayed the night, would you still love me tomorrow? So I don't know, that just popped in my head when I heard that. Fans have compared it to I'm With You because of its soaring chorus and the emotional lyrics, so I can see that. I think fans, you know, I mean, obviously I'm With You will always be like probably the top favorite song of her discography, and It Was In Me was supposed to be the sequel song to I'm With You, but I think a lot of people agree that this song sounds a lot more like a sequel song to I'm With You than It Was In Me could ever be, probably. And it seems like a lot more authentic and not like they were trying to make a sequel song to I'm With You, whereas It Was In Me, I think you can kind of tell that they were trying to make a sequel song, and it kind of just for me didn't really land. But I think this one, I can see the I'm With You comparisons. I would personally like to see this one go on an album. I think it shows that she can do other types of songs besides bratty songs or Love Sucks type of songs. Like, it's been a while since we've gotten a really good, strong Avril ballad, like a classic ballad from her. And to me, it sounds like an album closer. Like, I think this one would work really well as the last track of an album. So in conclusion, after going through all of those songs, my top favorites from the leaks are Rap Star, which is a big surprise to me because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, Playette, Aftershock, Bad Behavior, Blood, Pretty Ugly, the Gale and Youngblood collabs, Miss Me, and Would You Wait. My least favorites are Boy at the Rock Show, Classy Bitch, DICK, and So Cruel. I don't think we really need more songs like this after having a whole album of them with Love Sucks, frankly. And the songs that I think are promising but just need a little bit of work are Signs and You're the One That I Want. I would personally love to see Avril go in like a more nostalgic 2000s pop rock direction in the vein of the Bitch Meredith Brooks cover, Blood, Pretty Ugly, Seeing Red, Miss Me. I think that her longtime fans would love this because it's very reminiscent of the music that we grew up with from her, that we initially loved from her, but it would also feel fresh. And, there's nostalgia is big right now. And that's just like such a thing now, is nostalgic anything, and like reboots and sequels of old movies and TV shows and stuff, like the stuff that we grew up with. I think if Avril were to come out with a record that was very reminiscent of like Let Go, Under My Skin, that era, I think it may generate some interest even from people outside of the fan base, because it's like, oh, this reminds me of the music that I grew up with. Like, even if I'm not an Avril fan anymore, but it's like it brings me back to that time. I think her longtime fans and general public alike would probably be really into like a nostalgia sound from her, but that also feels fresh and new. And it might just be because I've been watching a lot of 2000s era rom-coms and stuff, but I get those vibes from some of her music lately. So I would personally be really on board with that. Like, I liked the Love Sucks album for what it was, and her going to pop punk and kind of returning to her roots in a way. It's not that I didn't like that from her, but I think now that we've had a record like that, we can move on, I think, from it. And I would like to see something, like, I would just like to see her kind of move on in a little different direction. Like, maybe not going into the rap and hip hop thing, because that's not really her, even if she does it well, but like going into country or going into a more, like I said, alternative rock, or going into like a more nostalgia based pop rock sound. I would just like to see her move into something different now, I think. So time will tell if any of these songs end up being officially released. Sadly, any of the ones from her previous albums, I think that ship has sailed, but at least we've gotten to hear them now, so better late than never, I guess. I think it's always interesting to hear what didn't make the album. Like, some of it is justified. I think some of it seems like songs that are all similar to each other and they just pick the best ones. And some of it you can see why they were left off, like if they just were never completed, or just like, yeah, this isn't going to work with the vibe that we're going for, or just, some songs just simply aren't as good as the other ones. As for the 8th album, it seems like Avril experimented with rap and hip hop, which we knew about, as well as her usual pop rock and pop punk, but also country. And so she was clearly like experimenting with a lot of different sounds, which we knew about. And it's possible that she might be going back to the studio just to solidify the direction, like just to kind of pick a direction so that she doesn't have like just a mishmash of sounds. And maybe she's kind of thinking like, I think the rap and hip hop stuff is probably long gone by now. I don't think she's feeling that anymore, but I think she might also be like wanting to stick to her normal pop rock and pop punk. But then I think she also feels like kind of a yearning to expand into like country, given her collabs with Nate Smith, for example. I think that maybe she's just kind of at a crossroads and feeling like she wants to make a record that is cohesive, but that it doesn't all just sound the same. I think that was probably a big problem with the Love Sucks album, is that it just didn't have enough variety. There was like one ballad on the whole album, and the record, like all the songs kind of sounded very similar, as did the leaks from it. And I think that maybe she might be feeling like, well, I did a record like that, and now I want to do something like, she never really does the same record twice. And after coming off of like a broken engagement and stuff like that, I kind of get the sense that maybe she wants to, return to some ballads and mid-tempos again and kind of do more variety this time, but still keeping that pop rock sound, but not just doing a Love Sucks 2.0. And like I said, incorporating her pop rock sound, but not doing pop punk necessarily. So I think maybe she's just taking some time, as she's alluded to, taking some time to go back into the studio and maybe like really nail down exactly the vibe that she wants to go for. Now that she has like all these different sounds floating around, that they all work really well, but they won't necessarily all work together on the same record. And so I think that's kind of what she has to figure out is, and especially now that the song's leaked, that might kind of put her plans behind as well. That's like, well, now I have to kind of start from scratch. So I guess, time will tell what ends up happening. But I do hope that like, it's not completely out of the question that any of these could make the record. Like, there's definitely some that I think we could leave off, like Boy the Rock Show, DICK, whatever. Like, those aren't really going to add anything of value in my opinion. But like I said, the Gayle and Youngblood collabs and Miss Me and Would You Wait, like those are really strong songs. Like, I think those are some of the strongest songs that we've heard her do. And it would just be really unfortunate if they never officially saw the light of day. So I hope that because they've leaked, that doesn't necessarily put them out of the running, and that she will consider putting them on an album officially. One last thing I want to mention is that, it's like, I guess if there's a silver lining to these songs coming out, I like seeing her process just in general of writing songs and making an album, is that some of the demos you can tell she's just laying down vocals to get the melody, but she hasn't filled in the lyrics yet. And I think that lines up with what she said before in the past about being able to easily write hooks, but she struggles to write verses. And so I think that's like very clear evidence of that. So I just think it's interesting to kind of see her process and how she ends up writing her songs, like how they end up coming together ultimately. So thank you for sticking with me through this very, very lengthy episode, but obviously for the first episode of 2025 and like 24 songs leaking, we just had to sit down and properly talk about it. So thank you for sticking with me through this very lengthy episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. And, hopefully there won't be any more leaks for a while, just because I don't want the entire album to get spoiled for us and that we have nothing new to look forward to, and that, Avril's work remains Avril's work. What's in the vault remains in the vault. But I hope it is a sign of things to come, like later in the year, that maybe we will get finally a new album from her. And if it's not exactly these songs, that maybe it's ones that are similar or just as good, or if not better. And I just hope that Avril can properly take her time to make an album that she's proud of. And hopefully there will be many more exciting episodes to come this year as we await to see what Avril does next. But that's all the time we have for today as we conclude this edition of the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you can get new episodes directly in your feed. And please don't forget to take a minute to leave a rating or review to help more fans find the show. We're currently streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Audible. Be sure to join me again next time on the Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast. The Best Damn Avril Lavigne podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Andrea DiFrancesco. Theme music is HD and Lights by J. Powell Flicks. Follow the latest podcast news on Instagram at bestdamnavrilpod or email bestdamnavrilpod@yahoo.com.